Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us on an NEC Speak Up podcast on the NEC Overtime Pod. Today, we are celebrating Black History Month, particularly Black history in our conference. My name is Adrian Barajas, and I'm the Communications Assistant at the NEC. I would like to thank Central Connecticut men's basketball head coach, Pat Sellers, and Stonehill men's basketball player, Shamir Johnson, for joining us today and offering to share their ideas and experiences around Black history in the NEC. Why don't we start by going around the room and introducing ourselves?
Hello, everybody. Patrick Sellers, head coach at Central Connecticut, proud Central alum. Played here from 87 to 91, and I was also an assistant coach here from 98 2002. So with those years, you can tell I'm an old head here for young Shamir. I'm also a huge fan of Shamir, number 22. He's a shooter, and he's always out there. Got 10 points on us the first time we played these guys in a really good game at Stonehill. So happy to see him here, and just did some more digging on him and a lot of research now, getting prepared for this podcast. And really interesting young man, man. You've done a lot for your community and your school. Happy to be on this podcast with you.
Yep, thank you. So I'll go ahead and introduce myself now. I'm Shamir Johnson, as Adrian mentioned, from Waterbury, Connecticut. Fifth-year senior at Stonehill College. That game was an amazing game. I'm excited to play you guys again. I did some research on you as well, Pat. I noticed that you play professionally overseas. That's very impressive. Like, I know that's every kid's young dream to do that. So kudos to you. Some stuff I've been doing on campus. I'm excited to talk about it with you guys. So appreciate the time, Adrian, for what you're doing in this podcast.
Absolutely, and it's a pleasure to have you guys. Thank you again for joining us. And why don't we just dive into some questions? So I'm gonna start off with you, Shamir. And could you just tell us about some of the work that you're doing off the court on Stonehill's campus?
Yeah, so a lot of the work that I'm doing is like the more prominent work started back in 2020, sparked by some of the George Floyd protests and like the racial injustice movements that we saw going on in the country as a whole. And so me and Coach Kraus, head coach of the basketball team here, we sat down and discussed ways on how maybe we could try to spark some movement and some conversation on our campus, a predominantly white campus, Stonehill. So I feel like it's important that we start these conversations and have them try to be ongoing. So I spearheaded a group called One Hill, kind of to try to personify that like oneness and like togetherness that the country itself needed at that time, in our school especially. So what that was a series of talks where we just discussed different ways in which this country, like the history of the country, injustices to minority groups, and how we can move forward and be more together on campus and kind of not repeat history again. And obviously, like, the goal wasn't to just, create this super monumental movement that would change a lot of things, but it's just to keep conversations going. Like, that's one theme that was huge back in that time. So that was my goal with the group. Otherwise, since then, the school has implemented a task force where I've been a part of that for a couple of years now. Some of my colleagues, some of my peers, my teammates, and classmates are in that too. And it's just a group, again, to address these issues when they come up and try to be, do the early work, to try to help the campus and see things change before, problems arise. So that's the goal with our group: get some more, use our voices as athletes, be able to, spread the awareness that injustices, as we've seen recently with Tyre Nichols and that, is still going on to this day and need to be talked about and addressed. But yeah, those are the two things that I've done that I think are pretty, that have changed some things going forward.
Shamir, that's truly amazing. And I just have a quick follow-up question. And I just wanted to ask about, since you've started this, One Hill community, like, looking back of when you started to where it is today, could you just share a few words of that progress and what it's meant to not only just you, but to the community and everybody involved?
Yeah. So again, for me, it was just being able to spark those conversations, right? After One Hill, we made the task force, and like most of my duties have gone to that. So it's just a matter of, seeing people being more aware of like what they can do to learn, like just to educate themselves. Right? That was my biggest thing, is educating yourself on the topic, right? So, now we have on our campus, we have games dedicated to Black History Month. right? That'll be our game against St. Francis, PA this Thursday. Like just seeing small steps being taken, whether it be like a poster or a mural put up on campus, just more attention to, day to day, the news headlines that go on with any minority groups, just like stuff like that is things that I'm proud to see they implemented in diversity, equity, and inclusion office and share on campus, which is huge, a huge resource for us on school. So just stuff like that, right? Like being able to spark kind of maybe some kind of change and like motivation to do those things is what I've seen in terms of progress, right? So yeah, that's how I feel about that.
For sure. That's amazing. And I love how you're emphasizing like the education on it, because I think we live in a day and age where like, we have these sources available to us, like social media, and people are just very quick to type up something, share their opinion, and set it without even being truly and deeply educated on topics. And I think that's awesome that you have this emphasis on education so that people can truly understand, the history, the current state, and then, what we can do for the future of all these types of topics and things we advocate for. So that is truly amazing. And now I have a question for Coach Sellers. Could you share with us which figures in Black history and basketball that have inspired you? What have you taken away from these individuals and implemented into your own coaching philosophy?
I can go like some of my mentors, like and he like probably not national names, a little bit maybe. Dave Lato, who I was an assistant for Dave at DePaul for 2 years. But Dave recruited and coached my brother at University of Connecticut. I've known him since I was 18 years old. He's a really great guy, outspoken figure. He's always promoting coaching and young Black coaches. He's always giving an ear to the young guys. He's telling them, giving us advice. So all throughout my career, coming up, even playing as a player and then going overseas and playing in Europe, he was always a mentor to me. And my other mentor is Carl Hobbs, who's an assistant at Rutgers now. And Coach Hobbs was an assistant at UConn, again, another UConn guy, but he was a head coach at George Washington. I learned a ton from him. And those two guys kind of really impacted my growth as a coach. And then as I go further into my career, I coached at Creighton in Omaha. And I got to Creighton and we had a diversity officer on our staff. It was Lynn Gordy. And you guys probably don't know that name. Lynn Gordy was a great player at Arizona way back in the 70s. But he was an assistant coach at Clemson University when I was in high school. I went to high school in South Carolina. And when Lynn Gordy walked in the gym, everybody stood up because everybody knew him. Everybody was, man, that's Coach Gordy. That's Coach Gordy. So when I got to Creighton, to be on the same staff with Coach Gordy was amazing. Just to hear some of his stories, and again, mentoring me, helping me out. To this day, as a head coach now, he still calls and checks in on me. We go through a losing skid. He'll say, "Hey, you're doing all right. Stay focused. Stay positive. You have a couple wins in a row." He gets on me, "Hey, stay tight. Don't let these guys get loose, whatever." So these guys are really, really been a big part of my career as a coach. And then, going back to the history, when I was a player here, and this is before you guys' time, when I was a player here, we played at Cal. And while we played at Cal, I played for a guy named Mike Brown. And Coach Brown called up Al Addles. Al Addles is a New York guard, tough New York guard that played for Golden State back in the days, coached Golden State, played with Wilt Chamberlain. This is how old school it was. And he was the GM for the Golden State Warriors when I was a player at Central Connecticut. And so he came to our shoot around and talked to all the guys. And so, I'm a basketball junkie. I've studied the history of it. I knew a lot about it. So I was one of the few guys who knew who Coach Addles was. I was so excited, man. Al Addles, I can't believe it. So, guys like that, you saw him rise up from a player to a coach to a front office, GM, president type of guy. Those guys always inspired me. And then you go even to today, like Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers back when he was with the Orlando, the Celtics, the Clippers, and now he's with Philly. When I was an assistant at UConn, Coach Calhoun got a big honor in Boston, and Doc Rivers got honored the same night. And we were at a dinner together. and just sitting there talking to Doc and hearing his stories, talking about Garnett, Ray Allen, and those guys, it was just amazing. So obviously, I've been a huge fan of Doc ever since I got a little up close and personal with him. So, you know, I've been lucky, fortunate to be in basketball for a long time and meet a lot of different people and work in a lot of different places. So it's been a lot of guys have touched me as a coach. And then I even go as far as, when I got the job a couple of years ago, Dennis Gates, who was the head coach at Cleveland State, now he's the head coach at Missouri, reached out to me and said, hey, Pat, we have a Sunday Zoom call. This is during the summertime where we talk X and O's, we talk strategy, we talk about dealing with the media, how you handle administrators, all of those things we talk about. And it's just a good Zoom to get on. And I've got so much respect from Dennis. He's doing a great job. He did a great job at Cleveland State, and he's doing a great job at Missouri. So all of those guys have been impactful in my career.
Yeah, no, truly amazing. You've shared a lot of big names and people who are really, really experienced in the game, and to be able to sit down and have dinner and work alongside some of these people and be in the same gym, I'm sure has offered you an opportunity to have a lot of takeaways and implement it into your own coaching philosophy. And I can only imagine what you're able to implement in your own team, and what your players can take away. So that's so great to hear. Some of those names are some big names. That's very awesome. Shamir, and for yourself, what kind of leaders in Black history have inspired you to pursue the initiatives that you started on your campus?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my inspiration comes from similar to Coach Sellers, like just people who I've been close to in my life. My coach in high school is extremely passionate about these kind of things, right? Like being advocates for like the youth and like making sure that we have a voice. Using your platform as an athlete. Coach Savar Bernier at Taft High School in Watertown, Connecticut. So like that's a good example. And then just obviously prominent figures in like the league, right? So the NBA was a huge advocate for social injustice and rights for Black athletes, things like that. WNBA as well. So just people like that, just being not afraid to like put their careers and professions on the line, speak up on podcasts or like whatever social media it is. And then historically, right, and there's figures like Ali and Kareem, Bill Russell, things like that, who were just always like, the stuff they've gone through is like 10 times, worse in a sense, right? Because they didn't have, social media, they didn't have things like that to speak on. They had to speak in person. They got like treated a lot differently than us guys nowadays, right? Similar problems, but just like the intensity of it was a lot different there. So like just stuff like that, right? And then just self kind of motivation to just kind of do something different, and kind of just shake the narrative and like spark something on campus was my biggest motivation. I would say.
Awesome. And Coach Sellers, when you as a a leader, a head coach, someone who has a lot of experience, when you see young student athletes, young basketball players like Shamir and others that you come across in your career, taking initiative, whether it be on the court or advocating off the court, what kind of encouragement, what kind of advice do you offer to keep the fuel, keep that fire burning for these student athletes?
Yeah, that like what Shamir is doing is tremendous. Again, I coached at Fairfield a couple years before. And when I was at Fairfield, we had the Black Men of Fairfield. And the athletic director asked me if I wanted to be a part of it. And I was like 100%. And it basically was like the Black students on campus, the Black men on campus. We would get together once a month, and we would have a topic, and we would talk about it. And so I was one of the old guys in the room, and they wanted like, Coach, you've been through this, you've been through that, and how do you approach this, and how do you approach that? And so, when I see the young guys, I'm always going through experiences, so many life experiences I've had. And one thing I always tell the young guys, and I tell our guys, we had a win on Saturday. I was like, hey, we had a win, go out and enjoy, but be smart, be safe, take care of each other. And the other thing I talk about is de-escalating a situation. And I tell these guys all the time, I've been pulled over like 3-4 times in the last 5 years. And it might be speeding, it might have been going through a yellow light, turn red, or whatever. got pulled over, and I've seen guys handle certain situations differently. So, for instance, a yellow light situation, or the red light, so to speak, I said to the officer when he came over, you know what you did wrong? I have my license, my registration. I handed it to him. I said, I thought I could get to that yellow light, probably turn red. I'm 100% in the wrong, and I made a mistake. Boom. He looks at my stuff, hands it back. Hey, just be careful next time. So three situations I've had where, and it was gray area, probably was yellow, but I didn't escalate it. I didn't get, combative. I didn't do any getting crazy or whatever. And so we just squashed the situation. And so when I talk to young guys, I'm especially now, the Tyree Nichols thing, like Shamir talked about earlier, George Floyd thing. Those guys were not getting combative or whatever. They just got beat up. And so it's a sad part of what we're going through in this era and this time. And again, like Shamir said, there's no social media back in the days. Now we have it, so we can see what's really happening. So if anytime I talk to the young guys, if they can avoid situations that you can say, you know what, I know I'm right, but for the time being, I'm going to eat some crow, and then I'm going to do what Shamir's doing. I'm going to get on campus, and I'm going to go against racial injustice. I'm going to talk it up. I'm going to go about it. But to be safe, to take care of myself, to take care of my friends in the car with me, to keep going, let me not get crazy and get out of control. Let me just de-escalate the situation. And then as we go forward, I'll do what Shamir is doing. I'll get my group together, and we'll say, you know what? People are getting beaten up and attacked or whatever, and we have to do something about it. And the more we get the younger guys to do it, the younger generation, the guys, they Shamir and those guys are so great with Instagram and Twitter, and they can get their word out there, and they can get people out there, the better off we are. So, I applaud the young guys, and anytime we have young guys that are into it, I'm 100% behind them, and I'm just giving them my knowledge from life experiences that I've gone through in the past.
Awesome. That's amazing. Some awesome words of encouragement and advice, both when you're in the situation, how to handle these situations, whether you're in the right, in the wrong, and just sometimes, unfortunately, there are instances where you're in the right and yet you're still getting the shorter end of the stick, per se. So, I mean, awesome advice, Coach. And I like how you emphasize that, you regroup after the situation and take it to, advocating, whether it be on social media, starting a group on campus, and just staying unified as a community to promote this change. So thank you for those words of encouragement and advice. And Coach, I'm going to follow up with the next question for you. So you served as an assistant for CCSU in the late 90s, early 2000s, returned to the NEC as an assistant for FDU through 2017 through 2019. And now you're back at CCSU as a head coach. Are there differences in terms of the Black experience and your NEC history that you can point to between then and now? Has anything changed?
Yeah, like George Floyd was a huge thing, that happened. And so everybody's more aware. People are willing to talk more. Back George Floyd happened when I was at Fairfield, and I remember our athletic director calling me and saying, "Hey, man, I'm sorry, and like, is there anything you want to talk about?" Like, people in the athletic department reaching out, the president reaching out, just wanting to talk and have dialogue and making sure I was okay, and then how we feel, and is anything we could do. So it gave us a platform to talk a little bit more. And so, it basically everybody is alert and aware and talking. And so you see that those changes in the NEC has happened. And like Shamir, what he's doing on his campus, and the guys on our campus are like really advocates for racial injustice, and they're talking about how to better our community, how to we have Zoom calls at Central Connecticut with the president, and we're talking about the Black experience on campus here and how we can get it better. So I've seen a lot of change in the NEC as we've gone forward, especially since George Floyd. Back when I played, it was, this was old school. Now I'm old, but I'm not the old part where it was like where Bill Russell and those guys went through. So it was similar to like it is today, but it wasn't as bad as in the 60s and the 70s. So it's just now more voices, more people talking about what's going on, and it's good to see in our league.
Amazing. And Shamir, Coach Sellers just mentioned how people, are a lot more alert and a lot more aware. And I think you're that perfect example. You personified what his words that he just shared with us, that, you have this alertness and you've implemented it into your campus going forward. So I just want to ask, could you describe one, maybe two goals that you were focused on achieving off the basketball court, and any plans? Do you have a system on how you plan to get there?
So you mean in terms of like spreading like racial awareness, things like that?
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, one of my goals early on when I was starting like to, I think about what I wanted to do, like what changes I wanted to see. A big thing that me and my coach talked about a lot too is like putting more minority people in like positions of not necessarily power, but just like influence on campus. So whether that's like coaching, teaching, just staff in general, right? Like the new head of diversity and inclusion I talked about earlier is a minority candidate, right? And he's doing amazing work here already. He's been here for a couple of months now, so he's doing amazing work. We hired a new assistant Black coach, Russell Jenkins, who's done amazing this year. Like scouts are great scouts, like great dude, like amazing role model for our team. The women's team has done the same. So I mean, there's just like that's one thing that I wanted to see a lot, right? And that's one way that you can help any community, right? By giving them positions to like be influences for whatever they're doing, right? It's coaching or teaching, things like that. And then another goal I wanted to see again was just being more visible with how we're representing like Black athletes. So again, like a BHN game, whether it's social media, like showcasing more of the work that we're doing, like not just myself, but like even the younger guys on the football team or like soccer, things like that, like showing what they're doing. Just making sure like everyone's like we're just being shown in the right light, and just doing the work early to get these kids and like the students to understand that Black athletes on the campus are doing a lot more than just playing and going to class, right? And trying to spread that a different message. So those were two goals that I had, and like I mentioned, like they've been doing a great job at following through. Even on top of that, like whether it's like just little like day-to-day stuff, like it's great seeing people talk about these things more. Like even this podcast is completely different. Like who knows if we would have this 3 years ago, right? Like if this conversation even be had. So you can just look on social media, you look on Apple Podcasts, like things like this are being talked about a lot more, just in a wider view, like big picture kind of thing. So like that's kind of cool to see in general. Not saying that was a goal of mine, but it's just cool to see like the correlation between the two, like kind of at player, which I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's like these indirect goals, that are coming up, and obviously your initiatives and what you're doing for your community, has snowballed into something that maybe you didn't think about, but now
Right.
you have an opportunity to be part of this. And this podcast is exactly for individuals like yourself to have the light on you for a bit, to really celebrate what you're doing for others and your community, yourself. So yeah, that's awesome. Love to hear those goals and the progress about them, and I hope you're getting all the support that that you're receiving, and everybody's all in at these meetings and conversations, and everyone that's involved. So, Coach Sellers, could you describe the legacy you hope to leave at CCSU and the NEC community?
Yeah, I just, when I, as an assistant here, we had a lot of success. We had a 19-game winning streak, go to the NCAA tournament one year, 15-game winning streak, NCAA tournament. Our best player got drafted, played in the NBA for 5 years. We had a lot of good things happen here on the court. And so I want to continue that. Hopefully we can get the program built back to where it was, where we're winning on the court. We got guys going to the pros and guys, not only guys going to pros, graduating and getting jobs, doing well after college. And I also want to leave, off the court where we are a program that's really good in the classroom. We've had, since I've been here in the 2 years, we've had 3 over 3.0 team GPAs. I want that to continue as we go forward. I want our guys to continue to be great men in the community, and I want them to be leaders in the community. We try to get to the local elementary schools and read to kids, and I want the kids to see, basketball players, athletes, Black men reading and talking and being role models and giving them, some encouragement going forward as students. So I want our guys to be really, really positive beacons of light in the community, Black community, and the community in general, and be leaders. I want to leave. Hopefully, we leave here with a bunch of guys who are leaders, and they make a big statement in our community. So that's the legacy I'm hoping to leave.
That's amazing, Coach. I think already, you're instilling this on your players, and all the best of luck and wishes, and continue to do what you're doing as a head coach and as a leader, because you're clearly impacting your community and as well as your student athletes, and I'm sure they would like to follow in the footsteps of an individual like yourself. So kudos to you. Go ahead.
I got one more, and this is just, again, I'll tell you, Shamir, I'm a basketball junkie, man. I'm a basketball nut. So I'm a huge NBA guy, and I'm a huge college history, all of that stuff. Well, 1996 in this league, this is before your time, LIU was really, really good. I think LIU might have won a few in a row. And the coach was Ray Haskins. They were pressing, running, trapping. They had their best player, Charles Jones, ended up getting drafted. I don't know if he got drafted, but he played for the LA Clippers for a few years. He might still be playing. Old school guy, but good guy. But on that staff, Coach Haskins had an assistant coach named Ray Jones, who was on the University of Notre Dame 1975 team. He was a starting point guard that beat the end of UCLA's 88-game winning streak. UCLA had won 88 straight games, and he was a starting point guard, but he was on the staff at LIU back in the days. And I've Coach Jones coached for a long time. So I used to see him on the road all the time. Great guy. And then I think it was a 2003 team. So I left in 2002 to go to UMass. That next year, Wagner won the championship with Derek Wittenberg. And when you're watching all the highlights of the NCAA tournament, you probably see the one where when Coach Valbano was running around, jumping around after So the guy who shot the air ball, there was a guy who shot the air ball and a guy who dunked the ball in. Lorenzo Charles dunked the ball in. Well, the guy who shot the air ball was Derek Wittenberg. He was the coach at Wagner that won it in 2003. So you have some history in this league, man, with some good coaches, good players. So you're in a really good league. I say this all the time. The NEC, obviously I think we have some really good guards in this league, but it's some good players, and I think our players in the NEC really need to know the history of how good this league is and how good we can become and keep going forward. So just wanted to share that with you guys.
Absolutely. Thanks, Coach. NEC historically, as you mentioned, was very competitive and had some awesome individuals come and go throughout the programs and go on to further their careers. So awesome. Thanks for sharing some of those names. And Shamir, could you describe the legacy you hope to leave at Stonehill and the NEC community?
Yeah, I mean, my 1-year stint at NEC, I feel like you can still do a lot in your time. Like I want to just be for the guys that are like coming back next year on our team. I just want to be like the kind of guy that just humble figure walking around, just working hard, head down kind of thing. Not being afraid to do other things outside of basketball. like my story is a little bit different, like with my injuries and stuff like that. So like I had more of a push to do some more stuff outside of basketball, right? Because
Mhm.
to be great, you gotta kind of have that kind of ego. Like true basketball is, one and all. Like you have to be all in on it. But I think you can still do a lot of. You can be a dynamic person outside of basketball. So that's my thing. And again, like just from a basketball standpoint, right? This league it's legitimate. So just approaching every game with like the right mindset. Not getting too high, not getting too low.
Mhm.
Just working hard, head down, and compete, right, with everything you do. So that's kind of legacy that I want to leave. Hopefully my guys can, carry that on and, things start to, move forward, continue to move forward on this campus, right, and in the league in general. So like what you're doing is huge. So I appreciate you for putting this on for the league.
Absolutely. And Shamir, how would you describe the support from your teammates, Stonehill campus, and others, and what you're establishing uh, within the community, and also even if you want to share what that support looked like when you were going through, your injury and bouncing back and getting to the point to where you are today.
Mhm. Yeah, no, the support has been amazing. More than I can even ask for, honestly. Like later today, we have Black History Month interviews and stuff like that, like just to get some perspective from the guys. Like dudes were more than willing to do it from the team. Like no hesitation, just like kind of when and where mindset. And then like throughout like the injuries and stuff like that, like dudes like always checking up on me after surgery or whatever and just making sure I'm good, like being in the gym, ready to be in the gym like early or late, whatever it is, to just get shots up or just be around. Training staff is great, like they're there 24/7, like ready to help us. Coaching staff like doing what they can to like ease you back into play, like figure out a new role, learn your body, things like that. So the support has been like what you'd expect from like a legitimate program like us, and that we want to just make sure everyone's feels included and like has a role, like a legitimate role, right? And whether like 1 through 16, like
Mhm.
we all feel like we're important on the team. So the support's been great, even from administration, right? Dean and Doug, reaching out to Adrian, you guys like putting this together. Support's been great, and back in NE10, like the same thing, like right, like administration was good. Um, they have initiatives. They allowed us to have our pregame like statement about inclusion, right? That we do. So just like not being open to new ideas. Everything's been more you can like even like reaching out with ideas to me. Like everything's been kind of great. Like I can't complain at all about the support that I've seen these past couple of years. So kudos to this campus and the leagues.
Absolutely amazing. And just to, go back a little bit on the legacy, I just wanted to mention that I think it's amazing. We have an individual like Coach Sellers who's had a lot of experience and time around the NEC. And now we have an individual like yourself, Shamir, a program that's new to the NEC and first time. And you guys have already, had such a big impact on the conference and just super excited to get this out there so that people could really see the work over time and to this present day. And then here we are sitting together having this conversation. So just wanted to just share, like, as someone who loves to do podcasts like this, I just wanted to like just show my appreciation for the both of you and, just the leadership and the qualities that you guys have to instill on your communities. So just wanted to share that. I just think, I just had that moment like in my head where I was just like, these guys deserve it. But Coach
Thanks.
Sellers, oh, absolutely, absolutely. Coach Sellers, could you just share why it's important to celebrate Black history? How can you use your platform as a head coach to raise awareness on important issues within the Black community?
Yeah, it's important. It's important for the young guys. It's important for like, Shamir, but it's important for even like the young, I have a 5-year-old nephew, I have a 3-year-old son. It's important that these guys, as they're coming up, they know their history. They know what happened in the past. They know how we're going forward. It's very important that the younger generation, as we go forward, can get our message out, can get everybody included, can get everybody together. Dr. Martin Luther King wanted everybody, to hold hands. They wanted everybody to be together and be one. And that's me. I'm that type of guy. And so it's important for the younger group to hear that. My son goes to a really diverse school, so to speak. It's very diverse. And he's friends with everybody. He didn't know race. He didn't know color. He didn't, and that's how it should be. And it gets,
Mhm.
as people get older, they start to pair off or they go their own direction. And that's why it's important for us to get the message out to the younger generation, because we don't have to see race. We need to just, everybody needs to be together. We should be working together as one. And if we continue to do that, and we, like as Shamir doing what he's doing now, with our guys here doing what we do here in Central Connecticut, and we go forward, it makes it for a better tomorrow. So that's why it's really important.
Absolutely. You couldn't have said it better, Coach. And it just, that looking back on Martin Luther King's speech, just judge by character, not by appearance or color of skin and all that. So that's amazing. For your son and your children, that they're starting to live in a world and that is like that. It's truly like that. Amazing. Shamir, what advice would you offer to inspire young individuals to take initiative for advocating what they believe in?
I think the biggest thing is just kind of just look around you. Like there's still so much work left to be done in terms of seeing these like equitable situations for all people, right? Like no matter what legislation is passed, there's still going to be like that remnants of just what we're looking for, discrimination against minority groups throughout history, right? And it's going to take years and years and years to like rebalance things how they should be. So like for like younger generations, myself, like even like high school kids, middle school kids, whatever it is, like making sure that you're not just being comfortable in the situation that you're in. If you are in a good situation, you haven't really experienced too much discrimination in your life. Like there's still people out there who are getting treated wrong for the color of skin. Like they're not getting hired, they're not getting paid the same, they're not getting treated the same in hospitals. You might not see it every day, but it's still going on, right? So just being aware that things are bigger than yourself, right? And it can happen to your family, it can happen to, so like just always being ready to advocate for what you should believe in, right? And some people don't even believe in these kind of things, so that's another factor too, is right, trying to spread the right message and change the minds of people who kind of believe that there's nothing wrong with the world and like society. So that's my motivation. That's like my biggest tip, is like just being not being too complacent with what we've done, and like just keep going. And there's always more work you can do. Like there's always more work for yourself too, right? Like if you are like a young Black man or woman in this country, like, and you feel like you've had a lot of opportunity, there's still so much more that you could be experiencing that you might not even notice is happening to you. So just being proactive with that. That's like my biggest tip.
And I like how you said, just like not to be complacent. And it's like words coming from real athletes. Always room for improvement, whether that be on the court or within our society, and just in our everyday thing. So yeah, not being complacent. Well put. That's some awesome advice and encouragement. And when it reaches the right crowd, I'm sure it'll translate. So awesome, thank you. And Coach Sellers, I figured, with all, your networking and experience, I thought it'd be cool to end with maybe a little story. So if you could you share any inspiring stories or experiences with African-American players or coaches that have impacted your life and career, one that sticks out the most to you?
That's a good question. Probably, this is a funny story. I don't know if it's sort of, I'll tell the story. I'm at Creighton, and so Coach Gordy, like again, I'm in awe of Coach Gordy. Every day I see Coach Gordy, I'm like, Coach Gordy, big time player, big time coach. So we land in Philly. We're gonna play Villanova, and Coach Gordy's from Chester, like right a neighboring city right next to Philly. So we get on the bus, and Coach McDermott is talking to the bus driver. Like Coach McDermott is real funny, and he's kind of going back and forth with the bus driver. And he said, "Hey, have you ever heard of Lynn Gordy?" And the bus driver was like, he said, "Yeah." He said, "Chester, Pennsylvania, like a really good basketball player." He said, "I think he went to Arizona." So he's saying it loud so Coach Gordy can hear. And we're all just sitting back, kind of laughing. And he's like, "Yeah, I think I heard of him. Yeah, I don't know. He might have been halfway decent." And he's like, "Well, all those guys from Chester, man, they never amount to anything. They never amount. They go to jail. They're in trouble, whatever. So the bus, we get to the hotel. We start to walk off the bus, and Gordy walks up and says, "Hi, I'm Lynn Gordy," and the bus driver cracked up laughing. We're laughing, and you know, it was a funny part of it, but then it also showed a guy who came from an inner city, tough background, and you know, obviously he was a really good athlete, but he worked his way up to become a great basketball player, became a great coach, and now like he is like the man on that campus at Creighton, and that campus is probably a lot like Stonehill's campus, Shamir, where he's like diversity, inclusion, equity. Like he is into it big time, getting students to get together, to recognize the students of color, to get the word out. To, you know, like George Floyd's situation happened, he was the forefront of it at Creighton. He got people talking. He got the younger students getting together. So he, you know, at the end, and I said to one of our players on the bus, I was like, "Hey, man," I was like, he wasn't one of those guys that didn't amount to anything. He really pushed himself, and now Coach Gordy might be 70 plus, and he's still impacting his community. And this is a guy from outside of Philly that's in Omaha, Nebraska, that's pushing his message and getting the word out. And like Shamir said, like everybody is starting to know and not letting people get complacent and getting a better life for themselves. So that stuck with me. It was a funny story, but it stuck with me because I watched this guy go from, you know, as I admired him as a player, and then obviously as a coach, and then just seeing what he's doing now is even bigger. So that stuck out to me.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that story. You know, just, you know, listening to it, you know, coming as an individual who came from, you know, a tougher background, I think it's important not to let that shape you, you know, if it does shape you, overcome it and show that, you know, you don't fall into the stereotype or, you know, the bus driver might have mentioned. And,
Right.
and also it kind of reminded me of what you mentioned earlier, you know, like, while the bus driver is saying this, you know, like it's like analyzing that situation and know how to like not escalate it, but like, you know, just listening and then afterwards handle it, introducing himself, and then that, you know, and there's always a way to present yourself, and he's clearly leaving that kind of impact. And you know, the two of you I know are going to leave that kind of impact, you know, on not just the NEC community and your programs community, but you know, just for anybody that you come across. So. And that is all the time we have for today. Thank you everyone for tuning in to an NEC Speaks Up podcast and celebrating Black history in the NEC. See you next time on the NEC Overtime Pod.